Oh, well, okay. I was raised in a barn.
Were you? So you get the door open?
I do. The barn door? Oh, that's right. I'm not supposed to do this, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, please find your seats and silence all electronic devices as our ceremony will begin shortly. Good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Colonel Angela Edmondson, we welcome you to this afternoon's retirement ceremony for Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer Johnson, the 17th Healthcare Operations Squadron Commander, following 22 years of honorable service to her country and the United States Air Force. I am Lieutenant Kayla Gilson, and along with me is Major Andrea Shepperly. We will be your narrators for today's ceremony. We are grateful that you are with us to share this important moment in Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer Johnson's career.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party, the singing of our national anthem, and the invocation.
Everyone go at ease. We'll check on what's going on.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party, the singing of our national anthem, and the invocation.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good afternoon. I invite you to pray with me. Heavenly Father, we're gathered here this afternoon to celebrate and recognize the distinguished career of Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer Johnson. We thank you, Lord, for sending Lieutenant Colonel Johnson here to Goodfellow Air Force Base as the Deputy Commander of the 17th HCOS. She served admirably with distinction these past few years. Today marks the end of her career in the United States Air Force. Over the past 2 decades, Jennifer and her family have traveled around the country and the world, serving those who serve our country. Over the years, Jennifer has led hundreds of airmen, guiding them, mentoring them, helping them to become leaders. She is a true patriot who has served with honor today in celebration of that service. As the active duty chapter of her career comes to a close, we pray, Lord, that you would give her guidance and direction and bless her and her family. As the transition to retirement is filled with being times of uncertainty and emotion, we finally ask that you fill Jennifer and her family with peace, joy, and love. In your name we pray.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez, for that beautiful rendition of our national anthem, and Chaplain Austin for the invocation. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
At this time, we would like to recognize some special guests in attendance with us today. Our presiding officer and special guest, Colonel Angela Edmondson, Chief of the Maintenance Division and the 21 Outfit Career Field Manager. The Commander, 17th Healthcare Operations Squadron, Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer Johnson. Her spouse, Lieutenant Colonel Jeremiah Johnson. Their children, Mason, Isaac, and Maggie. Lieutenant Colonel Johnson's parents, Michael and Marisol Polian. As well as her friends Katie and Eric Parker, Heidi Miller, Lieutenant Colonel retired Kylie Hester, Chief Master Sergeant retired Nicole Siegler, and family members Colleen and Milton Velez.
The 17th Medical Group Commander, Colonel Ian Ruchinsky, and the Group Senior Enlisted Leader, Chief Master Sergeant Catherine Gacco Escalera.
We would also like to thank all other family, friends, commanders, senior enlisted leaders, honorary commanders, civic leaders, and those attending virtually who have come to celebrate Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer Johnson's retirement. Welcome.
And now, it is my privilege to introduce our presiding official, Colonel Angela Edmondson, who will reflect on Lieutenant Colonel Johnson's career and achievements.
anytime things exceed your expectations, I think it's probably because you never give yourself enough credit. I think that's something that we'll talk about a little bit as we go throughout this afternoon. All right, I am Colonel Angela Edmondson, as we already introduced by our outstanding narrators over here. So first, round of applause for everyone who's put this ceremony together today. I am beyond grateful to have this opportunity to honor my forever friend, Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer Johnson, and to celebrate her service to our great nation. But first things first, I want to offer a special welcome to the front row. And to Jeremy and Mason and Isaac and Maggie, and to Mike and Marisol, and to Katie and Eric. I got to ride together in the car a couple of times today. It's nice to catch up with you. And to Kylie and Nicole and Uncle Mills and Aunt Colleen, thank you for being here to honor Jen. And more importantly, thank you for all the support you've provided to Jen and to the Johnson family over all of these many years. To the wing leadership in the front row, thank you very much for being here to honor Jen. I know that it means a lot to her. And to all of the other distinguished guests, commanders, chiefs, and more importantly, coworkers and friends, thank you for making the time to be here this afternoon. Now, while every retirement ceremony and career is a little bit different, there are a couple of pretty standard ways that presiding officials talk about the career of an honoree. So some will do a timeline walkthrough and talk about the different assignments and accomplishments. And others I've seen, they'll highlight common themes and threads about the retiree and weave them throughout the story of that person's career. So today, I hope you'll bear with me as I do a little bit of both, especially for Mason and Isaac and Maggie, because you need to know that your mom is not only a highly talented professional, but an even better person and friend. So the story of Jen's service, or at least the portion that I've gotten to be a part of, started at the end of June in 1998 when Basic Cadet Jennifer Pulliam and Basic Cadet Angela Luciano, that was us, found ourselves in a blue dorm room with blue blankets with red borders on night one of basic cadet training at the United States Air Force Academy. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later, but if you did the math, Jen and I have been friends for 26 years. And to get the chance to be here on both the first day and the last day of her career is such a special privilege, and risks probably both sending us into bouts of ugly crying at some point, but we're both going to do our best to hold it all together. So as I said, we'll talk about a little bit more about Basic Cadet Pulliam and Basic Cadet Luciano as we go. But at the Air Force Academy, Jen majored in biology, and she taught combat survival training, and she was an aerobics instructor. How many of you knew that she was an aerobics instructor? So while all three of those things are noteworthy, it's that last one, the aerobic instructor part, that I think best epitomizes one of the currents that flows throughout Jen's career. Because it shows the knack that she has for recognizing a need, matching it to a skill, and then making a positive difference. It also highlights one of the very many things that Jen was much better at than I was. But if it were not for her positive peer pressure to push me out of my comfort zone and do something that clumsy me was very intimidated to do, I would never have discovered my love of group fitness, and I still go to aerobics classes today, and I have Jen to thank for that. Now, obviously, she must have done very well academically in one of the most rigorous majors at the Academy. But I'm pretty sure Jen didn't show up on night one of basic training with a very clear goal of someday being an outstanding physical therapist. That spark came from someone else who saw something special in Jen and said, you know, I think you'd be really good at this. And 22 years later, there are thousands of lives that are changed for the better as a result of that simple pattern. Seeing a need, matching it with a skill, and then making a difference. Now, as graduation approached, Jen was competitively selected as only one of two Air Force students to attend a grueling 2-year program at Baylor University in Fort Sam, Houston, earning a master's degree in physical therapy. And looking through her records at that time, the bottom lines are pretty impressive. Her very first record, official Air Force record, makes it a point to call out all of the extra effort she put into helping her fellow students make it through. And the second one says, she was the best student that we have ever had. Did you guys know that? Your mom was the best student they've ever had. Oh. Yeah. So, it should come as no surprise that as Jen moved to her first operational assignment at Lackland Air Force Base in 2004, her records highlight an almost absurd amount of times that she is listed as the best physical therapist I've ever worked with in my entire career. Like seriously, it's in there like 5 times. She was an expert, I'm not actually exaggerating, it's like in there a lot. She was an expert clinician, critical thinker, researcher, and over again, someone who took the extra time to see and understand the needs of her patients and airmen. Come up with a plan of care, often with treatments that she either pioneered herself or improved through diligent research, and then made a positive difference. But during that almost 6 years at Lackland, a lot of other important stuff happened as well. She became a certified clinical instructor, making official the passion that she's always had to mentor and grow students. She volunteered for her very first deployment to Balad, Iraq, caring for U.S. coalition and Iraqi patients. And while all of that stuff is really important, the result of some mutual friends who thought that Jen might need a special friend, Captain William became Captain Johnson after apparently a really excellent night at Cowboys Dance Hall. And that's when the front row of the Johnson family started to take shape. Now, not to be outdone by those major life events, in addition to getting married, Jen was recognized as the 2007 Air Education Training Command Physical Therapist of the Year. And she was also selected for the prestigious, now these are all, like I'm gonna have to read this to make sure I don't mess this up, Orthopedic Manual Physical Therapy Fellowship. Did I get that right? Is that right? At Kaiser Permanente Viejo Medical Center. During that time, she became board certified in orthopedic physical therapy, became a fellow of the American Academy of Orthopedic Manual Physical Therapists, and completed the coursework she needed to turn her master's degree into a doctorate. Now, as a dumb aircraft maintenance officer who does not have a doctorate and is not board certified in anything, it makes me really proud. It makes my heart swell with pride to know that my friend has served with such great distinction. And while I don't usually read from performance reports, I think you guys need to know that your mom was the best they'd ever seen in the 10-year history of that program. You know that? Again, the best one ever. Yeah. Exactly. So now we'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but as we walk through the next couple of assignments to Cannon Air Force Base, New Mexico, RAF Lakenheath, United Kingdom, Joint Base Andrews in Maryland, Hurlburt Field, Florida, and then finally here to Goodfellow Air Force Base, Texas, Jen earned multiple other duty titles as Flight Commander, Element Chief, Branch Chief, Field Grid Officer of the Year, and ultimately Commander. But what really sets her apart is that somehow she managed to balance those responsibilities with her other duty titles, wife and mom. Mason was born while at Cannon in 2012, Isaac while at Lakenheath in 2016, and Maggie while in the National Capital Region in 2019. And so while she was guiding physical therapy services for U.S. Congress members, developing a knee injury prevention program for high school students, pioneering the implementation of the embedded operational support teams, and literally saving people from long-term physical disabilities, she and Jeremiah had to make some really hard choices and balance the careers of not just one, but two very highly committed, well-respected medical professionals, and raise three kiddos at the same time. And while I don't want to downplay the accomplishments of any of those assignments, because the standard of patient care that Jen instilled in all of those military treatment facilities, both at home and deployed, as a clinician, instructor, or supervisor, was recognized time and again as one of the best in the Department of Defense health system. If you were here this morning at this change of command, you heard about all of those awesome accolades. But the front row is evidence of those daily and multiple transitions she made from mom to wife to doctor to commander back again. And while on the outside they may have appeared seamless, they're at the heart of why Jen is so amazing and why we have her named for our friends. So I'm going to transition here to the part that's probably a little bit more likely to elicit moments of ugly crying by either one or both of us. And so we'll start with a quote by Douglas MacArthur. That was probably, ugly crying and Douglas MacArthur don't necessarily go together. But it's one of my favorite quotes, and bear with me a moment. So a true leader has the confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others. She does not set out to be a leader, but becomes one by the quality of her actions and the integrity of her intent. Okay, yes, I did take some liberties with the pronouns in that quote, because General MacArthur, in his era, there were not really a lot of leadership quotes that had female pronouns, but hopefully you will forgive my liberties with that quote. summarizes the arc of Lieutenant Colonel Johnson's career. Now back to the beginning. I promised at least another story about Cadet Pulliam and Cadet Luciano. So the first and one of my clearest and most well-preserved memories I have of Jen is this. So for those of you who have been through basic training in whatever capacity, whether in Academy or whether enlisted, or wherever it is that you went through one of those experiences, you know that it's intended to give you some seemingly impossible expectations and then provide you the opportunity to shatter your own personal limits, blow through them, and experience the satisfaction of achieving those expectations that seemed impossible only a few weeks prior. But during basic training, they generally do most of the sorting and arranging by alphabetical order. And since the other two females on our flight had last names that started with E and K, that meant Pulliam and Luciano were meant to be together. And I remember vividly sitting on the floor of our dorm room, after lights out, with our flashlights, engaging in illicit after-hours shoe polishing and uniform ironing. And I learned two things. First, Jen was much better at shoe shining than I was. But fortunately, I was much better at ironing than she was. And I learned that having a friend that balances you out and being a friend who balances someone else out is a precious gift and a precious responsibility. But second, and most importantly, for the first time in my life, I actually had a friend who was like me, who didn't think I was weird because of that extra stubborn bit of commitment that motivated me to stay up late and iron my pants in the dark with a flashlight. Because she wanted to do it too. And so let's go back to General MacArthur for a minute. I'm going to start with the second half of that quote first. The part about not setting out to be a leader, but becoming one by the quality of your actions and the integrity of your intent. I don't know if Jen knew exactly where her Air Force journey was going to take her in those early stressful days, because none of us really do. But what was there, and has always been there, was a genuine, pure, and selfless desire to serve others and to serve her nation. And that has always been Jen's guiding principle. And at each step, many of the ones that we've talked about here, she progressed and excelled, not because she sought out those prestigious programs or titles or wanted to win the prize, but because she saw a need, had a skill, or the confidence to learn a new one, and then took action to make a difference in the lives of those around her. And when I asked her about the things that she was most proud of in her career, it wasn't the titles or the accolades or that she was the best student ever. Jen genuinely loves meeting the needs of her patients and guiding them to recovery, mentoring students and airmen to be better technicians, clinicians, and versions of themselves. And that ultimate job satisfaction of encountering a challenge, having the courage to meet it head on, not for yourself, but for the people that count on you, there's nothing that can replace that. So I'll wrap up here. For me, is the most emotional part of all of this, and I think Jen might agree. Doing all of that as a wife and a mom can sometimes feel very lonely. And if we check back in with General MacArthur, okay, he had no idea what it was like to be a wife and a mom, but a true leader has the confidence to stand alone, and the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others. But so we've already sort of covered the compassion to listen to the needs of others part. But the standing alone and the making tough decisions part is where I want to finish. Because even now, in 2024, the list of friends and mentors I have whose lives have looked like mine is very short. And Jen and I both shed some tears as we recounted the long list of amazing mentors and friends who have taught us and grown us and helped us be the leaders that we are today, who have never really had one that looked like us, who truly understood what it was like to sit at the dinner table with your spouse and puzzle over that next assignment, or prepare for that upcoming deployment filled with fears and tears and doubts and frustration, and all those worries about how are we going to figure this out. To ask yourself, am I doing the right thing? Beating yourself up because you weren't able to follow through with those good intentions that you had, doing something for the kids or doing something for someone at work because you collapsed on the couch in exhaustion after soccer practice with dirty dishes still left in the sink. But then you get up the next morning, you shake off those insecurities, and you stand up again because you recognize how much your positive example can mean to all of the other young women who are watching you and you don't even realize it. So let's end with the making tough decisions part. I have no doubt that Jen makes hard decisions every day before breakfast. But seriously, who has ever gotten kids ready for school? There's lots of hard decisions that are made before breakfast. I have to understand. But seriously, throughout her career, she has made difficult and life-altering decisions about the care of her patients. And there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of people who are better for her courage. But we are sitting here today because of a tough decision. Because there is no doubt that Jen still has a very deep desire to continue serving. Even last night, Isaac, I don't remember if you said this, Isaac was like, Mom, you shouldn't retire. You should stick around for a few more years so you can be a general. So clearly Jen's kids understand how important her service is and how important her service is to her. But as Jeremy and Jen probably sat down at their table some months ago and had that conversation about, well, should we both stay? Or should we both retire? Should one of us retire and the other one stay? Jen had to dig deep and probably felt pretty lonely for a while. But when she finally said it's time to make that choice to retire, I have absolutely no doubt that she made that decision for all the right reasons. And the right reasons are sitting in the front row of this room. Because the last thing that Jen told me that she was most proud of was the strength of her family, the challenges that they've endured, the sacrifices they've made, and this front row is proof. So Jen, thank you for giving me the privilege to be here to bring things full circle, to honor you, my forever friend, a person who gets me, and to tell you that I understand. And most importantly, to tell you how incredibly proud I am of you, of all that you've accomplished in the amazing family that you and Jeremiah have held together. Congratulations, my friend, and may God bless you and your family as you figure out whatever comes next.
Thank you, Colonel Edmondson.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the reading of the retirement order. Publish the order. Attention to orders. The Department of the Air Force Special Order Number Alpha Charlie 012625, dated 29 January 2024, by order of the Secretary of the Air Force, Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer N. Johnson is relieved from her active duty responsibilities, 17th Medical Group, Goodfellow Air Force Base, Texas, effective 1 January 2025, in the grade of Lieutenant Colonel with 22 years, 7 months, and 2 days time in service. Signed, David W. Alvin, General Chief of Staff, United States Air Force.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Lieutenant Colonel Johnson will now be presented a certificate of retirement from the Chief of Staff, General David W. Allen.
Hopefully one of these turns out. Right, we're gonna go to the other side, right? Sorry, yes, no, yes? No, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I knew it, I was told I was supposed to flip next, okay, all right.
Lieutenant Colonel Johnson will now be presented with a certificate of appreciation from the Commander-in-Chief.
Beautiful, thank you, sir.
Certificate of Appreciation for service in the Armed Forces of the United States of America, Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer Col Johnson. I extend my personal gratitude and the sincere appreciation of a grateful nation to you for your patriot service to our country. Your bravery and dedication in our armed forces helped protect your fellow Americans during a critical moment in our history and contributed to a world of greater security and growing prosperity. Your devotion to duty, honor, and country, and keeping within long traditions of the finest military embody the American idea of selfless service, our nation owes you an incredible debt. Your commitment and the example you set will inspire future generations to serve with pride and to keep our country secure. You represent the best of our nation, and I join our fellow Americans in saluting your honorable service. I wish you happiness and success in your next chapter. Signed, President Joseph R. Biden, Jr., Commander-in-Chief. Okay, let's do it.
We talked about this a bunch of times. Are we gonna do one or something?
Lieutenant Colonel Johnson will now be presented a certificate of appreciation from the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Chief Master Sergeant David A. Falky. Every retiree receives a special retirement pin as memento of their active duty service. Lieutenant Colonel Jeremiah Johnson, will you please come forward to place the pin on your wife's lapel to symbolize her transition from active duty to retired status? Lieutenant Colonel Jeremiah Johnson will now be presented a certificate of appreciation from the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, General David W. Alvin. Lieutenant Colonel Jeremiah Johnson will now be presented a certificate of appreciation from the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Chief Master Sergeant David A. Flossie. Mason, Isaac, and Maggie Johnson will now be presented the Military Child Medal from Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer Johnson.
Cue.
You may always sit. Ladies and gentlemen, service members will now perform the passing of the flag ceremony. This ceremony is a dramatic and uplifting way to honor the flag on special days like the retirement of Colonel Johnson for over 22 years of service and contributions to United States Air Force. For more than 200 years, the American flag has been the symbol of our nation's unity, as well as a source of pride and inspiration for millions of citizens. Born on June 14, 1777, the Second Continental Congress determined that the flag of the United States be 13 stripes, alternating between 7 red and 6 white, and that the Union be 13 stars, white and a blue field representing a new constellation.
Between 1777 and 1960, the shape and design of the flag evolved into the flag presented before you today. The 13 horizontal stripes represent the original 13 colonies, while the stars represent the 50 states of the Union. The colors of the flag are symbolic as well. Red symbolizes hardiness and valor. White signifies purity and innocence. And blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Traditionally a symbol of liberty, the American flag has carried the message of freedom and inspired Americans both home and abroad.
In 1814, Francis Scott Key was so moved at seeing the stars and stripes waving after the British shelling of Baltimore's Fort McHenry that he wrote the words to the Star-Spangled Banner. In 1892, the flag inspired Francis Bellamy to write the Pledge of Allegiance, our most famous flag salute and patriotic oath.
In July 1969, the American flag was flown in space when Neil Armstrong planted it on the surface of the moon. Today, our flag flies on constellations of 4 satellites that circle our globe, and on the fin flash of our aircraft in harm's way, in every corner of the world. Indeed, it flies in the heart of every airman who serves our great nation. The sun never sets on the United States Air Force, nor on the flag we so proudly cherish.
Since 1776, no generation of Americans have been spared the responsibility of defending freedom. Today's airmen remain committed to preserving the freedom that others won for us for generations to come. By displaying the flag and giving it to a distinctive fold, we show respect to the flag and express our gratitude to those individuals who fought and continue to fight for freedom, at home and abroad.
Since the dawn of the 20th century, airmen have proudly flown the flag in every major conflict on lands and skies around the world. It is their responsibility, our responsibility, to continue to protect and serve the rights, privileges, and freedoms that we as Americans enjoy today. The United States flag represents who we are. It stands for the freedom we all share and the pride and patriotism we feel for our country. We cherish its legacy as a beacon of hope to one and all. Long may it wave.
Lieutenant Colonel Johnson will now present a special gift to her husband, Lieutenant Colonel Jeremiah Johnson. Sir, will you please come forward? Okay. Most important. Remind us, just a J and a J from New Mexico, from Michigan. Colonel Johnson will now present a token of appreciation to each of her children, Mason, Isaac, and Maggie. Will you please come forward? Lieutenant Colonel Jeremiah Johnson will now present Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer Johnson with her retirement shadow box. Colonel Ian Ruchinsky and Master Sergeant Sims will now present Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer Johnson with the 17th Healthcare Operations Flag. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure and distinct honor to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer Johnson, United States Air Force, retired.
Good afternoon. I want to start by thanking Tanya for her beautiful rendition of the national anthem and Chaplain Austin for your inspiring invocation. Let's go ahead and give them a round of applause. Colonel Wilson, Colonel Galby, Colonel Ruchinsky, Chief G, thank you for being here today. Any deputies, fellow commanders, squadron commanders, cells, I'm not sure if any of them were able to make it out. 2 ceremonies in 1 day is a lot. And first sergeants.
Hello.
Oh, I love it. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Mom, Dad, Uncle Milton, Aunt Colleen, Katie, Eric, Kylie, Nicole. Thank you for making the journey to San Angelo. To my family and friends online, thank you for your virtual hugs and high fives. Thank you to the Healthcare Operations Squadron and other Cobra medics who are here this afternoon. Lieutenant Gilson, Sergeant Watson, Jake, Master Donaldson, Major Shefferly, Lieutenant Miller, Lieutenant Cook, Senior Airman Malone, and Senior Airman Lowe. Wow. Thank you for putting together this ceremony to celebrate this career milestone and to honor my family and I. There might be some tears. We'll see how it goes. So I stand before you this afternoon with a full heart. I feel so fortunate to have served this great nation for the past 22 years. When I think back at my time, it is marked with great people and opportunities, and I would like to spend some time reflecting on my experience. So Angela covered some of these things. I'm going to maybe kind of fill in some of the gaps here. So how did I get here? Well, it all started back in high school in Los Alamos, New Mexico. I had the opportunity to attend several sports camps and a science camp at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. Soon thereafter, I received correspondence in the mail encouraging me to apply to the academy. Military service was not something I had given a lot of thought to before that time, but I decided to start the application process in addition to applying to other state schools. It was certainly an arduous process. I spent lots of time prepping for my ACT and SAT and ACT. I underwent 3 congressional nomination interviews, wrote my essay, completed many application forms. In the end, I was accepted, so I decided to try it out. In the back of my mind, I thought, hey, if it doesn't work out, I can leave before the 2-year mark without any commitment to the government. So off to basic cadet training, I went in summer of 1998. That's where I met Colonel Edmondson. She was indeed my very first roommate at the academy, Cadet Squadron 34. My time at USAF was challenging to say the least, but I've always maintained that I would do it again if given the opportunity. At some point my junior year, I was approached by Mike Ross, who was a physical therapist in the Air Force. He was teaching in the biology department. And he said, hey, Polium, you should check out this physical Boy, was I wrong. Like most military education programs, it was education by fire hose. After a grueling 18 months, I graduated with a master's in physical therapy and was assigned to Lackland Air Force Base. It was this first assignment that probably set the foundation for why I made the Air Force a career. I was with a team of therapists who were devoted to their craft, took time to mentor and grow the next generation of therapists, and who knew how to have fun. Jeremiah Sampson, Ben Hando, Joe Kirkman, Corey Middle, Nicole Jury, Victoria Leak, Mike Flowers, Danny Watson, David Browder, and Brian Young. You guys were the best. Wilford Hall was also the best, or the perfect place to start out my physical therapy career. I was exposed to various settings of care, seeing patients in the outpatient setting, basic military training, special tactics pipeline trainees, and the inpatient setting, where we would treat patients with a variety of medical conditions, including complex civilian trauma patients. I learned so much in my time there. Wilford Hall was indeed where I met Jeremiah. He was a dietetic intern from Michigan, and as fate would have it, we attended the same Alta class. For those of you who don't know what Alta is, it was the very first electronic medical record in the military health system, so technology brought us together. How romantic. But unbeknownst to us at the time, our PT and dietetic friends were commiserating on how to get us together. They did arrange that first day to Cowboys dance hall. The sparks flew. The rest is history. After Lackland, I had the opportunity to further develop my skills as a clinician and attended an Air Force-sponsored physical therapy fellowship at Kaiser Permanente, which was another outstanding opportunity to refine my skills and meet lifelong friends in the civilian PT community. Following my fellowship, I had 2 deployments and assignments to Cannon Air Force Base, Leahy, Dreyfus Andrews, Hobart Field, and Goodfellow Air Force Base. Some locations were great, and some were not the best. But by the time I left each location, I was always left in a pit in my stomach to be having to say goodbye to all the good friends I had made. I want to talk a little bit about my career field, physical therapy. What a phenomenal opportunity to serve those who serve. Each patient presents their own unique challenge. Get to learn about what motivates them, what their goals are, and guide them back to good physical health through their rehabilitation program. I loved it, except for the documentation. You see, that is the hard thing about the career field for me. If you gave me 40 minutes with a patient, I probably took 45. My documentation was always incomplete. So at the end of the busy day, where you saw 10, 12 patients, I was left with a stack of notes. Early on in our marriage, Jeremiah would always say, "You just have to talk less with your patients." I said, but that's impossible for me, because the fulfillment for me came from that patient-provider interaction. It really has been a special career, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. Now for some recognition and thank yous to the 42B career field. Thanks for looking out for me, Colonel Rogers, Colonel Shields, Colonel Aaron Reed, Colonel Dixon. You always advocated for me, ensuring opportunities for growth and development while working with the public health career field to carefully balance the needs of my spouse and family. Thank you for making it happen. Supervisors, senior NCOs, to name a few, Colonel Rumchinsky, Colonel Osler, Chief Brock, Chief GE, Chief Siegler, Dave Browder, Brian Young, Corey Middle, Airman Cedeno, Rudy Torres, Brian Fleischman, Brandon York, Master Donaldson, Master Mundy, Master Sims. Thank you for investing in me, guiding me, and for not letting me embarrass myself. I couldn't have done it without you. Heidi Miller, where is she? Hi, Heidi. Thanks for the many hours of babysitting over this past year while Jeremiah was deployed. This girl has been amazing at balancing her senior year of high school, working a part-time job, and helping with me stick Isaac and Maggie. They were always so disappointed when you weren't coming over, so I don't know what I'm going to do. Colonel Edmondson, Angela, thank you for officiating my ceremony. When we talked on the phone, you asked, why did I want you to officiate my ceremony? First, I thought it would be really cool to just end things where they began, as roommates at the Air Force Academy. Second, and most important, I saw myself in you. Just a girl in the world with a career and a family, doing the best you can to serve our nation. Be a good spouse and mom. You are truly amazing. Thank you, and I wish nothing but the best for you, Mike, Tommy, and Grace. All right, hold them together. Evan, Laura, Michaela, and Patrick, thank you for your support and encouragement from afar. Look forward to seeing you guys sometime soon. Mason, Isaac, Maggie, thank you for joining your dad and I on this journey. Thank you for your patience and understanding when dad or I had to be away. Thank you for understanding that moving is part of military life. I know it One day in the future, you can look back and think of this time as an adventure. I love you guys, and I'm so proud of you. Just calling you. Debbie, Phil, Mom, Dad, thank you guys for everything you've done for Jeremiah, the kids and I. From moving to Maryland to support Jeremiah and I while we negotiated the kids and relocations 50 miles apart, countless trips to visit us wherever we were stationed, to stay weeks at a time during deployments, thoughtful care packages, and help with the kiddos and household chores. We couldn't have done it without you. A little bit more about my parents. Dad, thank you for setting the foundation, helping me to understand the importance of hard work, persistence, service, and family. Thank you for making me believe anything is possible as long as I was willing to work for it. Mom, as a woman with a career and family, you were my first example that I could have it all. Thank you for your boundless energy, youthful spirit. She was playing basketball between the ceremonies and playing with my son. Great example of that. And instilling me a sense of adventure. Jeremiah, thank you for being you. Thank you for all the things you do for me and our family. Thank you for listening, giving great advice, loving me on my worst days, and celebrating special occasions, and for being my partner in this Air Force journey. I am so proud of us. This Air Force career is something that we did together, always making each other and Mason, Isaac, and Maggie our top priority. I love you, and I can't wait to see what our next adventure is. All right. It's been the experience of a lifetime. Again, thank you all for celebrating with me today.
Ladies and gentlemen, the men and women of the United States Air Force are proud to have served Lieutenant Colonel Johnson and wish her and her entire family every success in their future endeavors. Please stand for the singing of the Air Force song and the departure of the official party.
Off we go into the wild blue yonder, finding eyes the sun. Here they come, swimming to meet our thunder. Adam now, give 'em the gun, give 'em the gun. Down we dive, starting our flames from under. Off with one hell of a roar. We live in fame, we're down in flames. Hey, nothing can stop the U.S. Air Force.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. Please join us as we congratulate Lieutenant Colonel Johnson and her family